Hey everyone, welcome to today's Explainer. We're breaking down the absolute massive shifts shaping our world right now, today, August 11th, 2026. Seriously, we have a ton of ground to cover. We are unpacking everything from intense global geopolitics and heartbreaking natural disasters, all the way to staggering tech leaps that are quite literally going to change how your phone works by this time next year. So, if you want to know exactly what's moving the markets and dominating the headlines today, you are absolutely in the right place. Let's dive in. Here is our agenda for today. First up, global tensions and national policy. Then, markets, inflation, and the economy. After that, big tech and AI moves, followed by health, science, and weather. And finally, we will wrap up with entertainment and sports. All right, let's jump straight into Section 1, global tensions and national policy. We unfortunately have to start with a truly devastating situation down in South America that is demanding an immediate international response. 224. That is the confirmed death toll so far from Monday's massive 7.4 magnitude earthquake in Western Colombia. To put that into perspective, this is the absolute strongest quake the country has faced this entire century. It's just a heartbreaking situation. Looking closer at the fallout, cities like Cali, Pereira, and Manizales have just been devastated. Colombia's newly inaugurated president, de las Priela, has declared a national disaster and already deployed 1,000 troops to Cali. But, while Colombia is mounting this massive emergency response, we're also tracking some major defensive shifts globally. Over at the Pentagon, they just announced they're urgently reshaping their whole U.S. missile procurement strategy. Back-to-back global conflicts have basically drained U.S. munition stockpiles way faster than they can be replaced. Oh, and over in Eastern Europe, Russia has officially barred the country's final anti-war political party from even appearing on the October parliamentary ballot. Moving over to the Middle East, the situation there remains incredibly delicate. Qatar's foreign ministry is saying that negotiations over in Oman regarding the Strait of Hormuz are actually at an advanced stage. But honestly, the underlying tension is still boiling. Reporting over the weekend just revealed that an Iranian threat during this diplomatic window was actually severe enough to trigger an unreported, completely secret flight out of Turkey for Donald Trump. Which brings us right into Section 2, markets, inflation, and the economy. That ongoing diplomatic standoff we just talked about in Hormuz, it is colliding directly with global markets right now. Because of all that uncertainty, crude oil has topped $83 a barrel today. It's a textbook example of how geopolitics just freezes capital. I mean, the S&P 500 is holding completely flat, while the Dow and Nasdaq have actually edged down a bit. Traders are simply refusing to take on any real risk right now. And the real reason they're all holding their collective breath comes down to this. Tomorrow morning, 8:30 a.m. Eastern, we get the July CPI report. This is hands down the most critical data point of the week for figuring out if the Fed is going to hike rates in September. Now, consensus forecasts are saying headline inflation should ease up to 3.4%. But, and this is a massive but here, economists are warning that if that oil price surge from the Hormuz closure keeps up, we could easily see inflation creeping right back toward 4% by the end of the year. Now, while we're all waiting for that macro data to drop, we're seeing some gigantic movements in corporate finance. Jeff Bezos just wrapped up a pre-scheduled stock sale, offloading more than $4 billion in Amazon shares. Meanwhile, Netflix is seeing its stock slip a bit. Their Q2 revenue growth slowed down, and viewing hours only ticked out by a somewhat concerning 2%. And then there's Intel. They are radically upsizing their stock sell-off to a staggering $20 billion as their shares continue to slide. Speaking of massive piles of cash, let's pivot to Section 3, big tech and AI moves. The numbers we are seeing in artificial intelligence infrastructure right now are they're mind-blowing. $500 billion. Let that sink in. That is the amount NVIDIA just quietly secured in private bank financing. And get this, it's not for buyouts or acquisitions. That $500 billion is solely to fund the build-out of their expanded AI infrastructure. The infrastructure demands for this level of AI computing are getting so intense that we're seeing totally unprecedented deals just to secure electricity. Anthropic just launched a joint venture called Theseus Infrastructure to build these massive purpose-built U.S. data centers. And here's the kicker. To get the local communities on board, Anthropic has literally pledged to cover 100% of all grid upgrade costs, plus any resulting electricity rate hikes for everyday consumers. That right there shows you exactly how desperate these AI labs are to plug into the grid. On the software side of things, the entire landscape is about to be forcibly rearranged. Thanks to the European Union's Digital Markets Act, Google has literally been ordered to pry open its Android operating system. Right now, that deep system integration is totally exclusive to Google's Gemini. But by August 2027, Google has to allow 11 different system-level features to work with rival AI assistants. We're talking Claude, ChatGPT, and Copilot. Plus, they actually have to start sharing search data with rivals by this coming January. And if they don't, they're facing threats of fines up to 10% of their global turnover. No joke. But hey, Google definitely isn't just sitting on its hands. Tomorrow night, 6 p.m. Eastern in New York, they are hosting their big Made by Google event. We're fully expecting the brand new Pixel 11 family, including the Pro Fold, to feature the industry's very first 2nm Tensor G6 chipset. They're also slated to debut this new Pixel Glow LED feature, along with the Pixel Watch 5. It is gearing up to be a massive hardware push, all completely centered around running AI locally right on your device. All right, let's switch gears a bit for Section 4, Health, Science, and Weather. Here we've got a major policy shift directly colliding with an actively developing public health situation. President Trump has just signed a new executive order that overhauls childhood immunizations. Basically, the order proposes reducing the recommended routine shots down to 11 and separating the standard combined MMR vaccine into 3 distinct doctor visits. Now, medical groups and public health officials have immediately spoken out against this, warning that the move poses a serious risk to our already declining immunization rates. And to back up those warnings, medical professionals are pointing straight at the recent data. The U.S. has already hit 847 confirmed measles cases through July. That is a 25-year high. Pediatricians are arguing that separating the MMR vaccine into 3 different appointments will dramatically extend the window of time where young kids are left completely unprotected during an active outbreak. Moving over to the legal landscape, the courts are just incredibly active today. A federal appeals court just lifted a key barrier, which essentially opens the floodgates for thousands of lawsuits to proceed against social media platforms over harm to users. Up in New York, Mayor Mamdani's signature pied-à-terre tax was just completely paused by an emergency court order. And on a national level, the new Attorney General Blanche is starting his first full week facing a totally massive backlog of politically charged decisions. We're talking the Fauci contempt case, the Epstein files, and rulings on a purge of immigration judges. On the personal health and weather fronts, we actually have some highly actionable science for you today. New research confirms that just 90 to 120 minutes of weekly strength training is associated with a 13% lower risk of early death. So hit the gym, which is great news, unless, of course, you're trying to work out outside in the American South right now. We are looking at absolutely brutal extreme heat advisories today, with heat indices hitting 110 degrees in Florida and 108 in Nashville. Oh, and the National Hurricane Center is currently tracking a developing tropical cyclone just southeast of Hawaii. If you need a quick moment of cosmic relief from all the heat and heavy headlines, tomorrow brings something pretty spectacular. We're going to see the first total solar eclipse visible from mainland Europe since all the way back in 1999. The path of totality will sweep right across northern Spain. Both NASA and the European Space Agency are going to be running live streams throughout the day, starting right at sunrise, so definitely check that out. Finally, let's wrap things up with Section 5, Entertainment and Sports. Looking at the massive culture and entertainment numbers dominating the back half of 2026, the domestic box office has absolutely roared back to life. It has already cleared $6.2 billion. That is running a full 15% ahead of last year's pace. This incredible post-pandemic high is really being driven by massive juggernauts like Spider-Man Brand New Day, which honestly just flew past $460 million domestically in only 10 days. It is easily tracking toward a $1 billion final run. Behind the scenes, the business of entertainment and sports is shifting in a big way. The massive antitrust trial for the Paramount and Warner Brothers Discovery merger is now officially locked in for March 2027. We're also anticipating OpenAI's public S1 filing by mid-August, which will finally give us our first real look at their actual revenue and, frankly, their insane computing burn rates. Over in sports, the full NFL preseason kicks off this Thursday, though unfortunately it's amid a brutal rash of training camp injuries, including big names like Isaiah Pacheco and Laramie Tunsil. And basketball fans, the NBA just dropped its schedule. The Knicks are officially set to raise their championship banner on October 20th. Which brings us to the real main takeaway from all of this. Tomorrow is shaping up to be an absolutely defining day across the board. We've got the critical July CPI inflation data hitting in the morning, Google's super aggressive new AI hardware launch in the evening, a literal total solar eclipse happening overhead, and simmering global tensions in Hormuz underpinning the whole thing. So the big, crucial question I want to leave you with is this. With all of these massive colliding forces on the table, how in the world will the global markets digest it all when the opening bell rings tomorrow morning? Thanks so much for joining this explainer, and we will see you next time.